Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of a five-deuce Pueblo Bishop blood by the name of Lil Bandit. Now, Bandit was born Deshaun Coleman on February 20th, 1996 in Los Angeles, California. He and his siblings will be raised in the South Central section controlled by the Pueblo Bishop Bloods. Now, this hood consists of two cliques, five deuces, and the five foes. Now, the Pueblos is one of the most notorious blood sets in South Central, known for murders, shootings, extortion, and drug dealing. Now, the Pueblo's main base was the Pueblo Del Rio projects, and this is where a lot of activity went down, which also included the Pueblo's enemies coming by and taking shots at them. Now, for Lil Bandit, gangbanging was a part of his everyday life because he had multiple family members who were part of gangs, and that included Bandit's father, known as Black Nine, who was an OG from the Nine Deuce Be-bop Watts Bloods, also known as the Nine Deuce Bishops. Now, this gang had close ties with the Pueblo Bishop Bloods. Now, Bandit, like many kids, was simply a product of his environment. And in his early teens, he would eventually get put on to the five deuces. He would go by Bandit Deuce or Lil Bandit. He would start running the streets, getting into fights, and this behavior would eventually land him into juvenile detention center in San Bernardino around late 2012. Now, part of his rehabilitation were not only just to serve out his sentence, but he had to work on finishing school, and also he would take part in a well-known Phoenix Gateway program, which was a youth gang intervention program. Now, eventually, Bandit would complete this and be back on the streets by 2016. Now, of course, coming home back to the inner city with no job, no money, it will be a challenge for Lil Bandit to stay away from that street life. But in the midst of all this drama and chaos, Lil Bandit would get some good news that his baby boy had just been born, which would add extra motivation for him to really push to take care of his family. But sadly, his good intentions would lead him down the wrong path, and by September 2017, Lil Bandit would be arrested for burglary and vandalism, which he would ultimately plead not guilty to. And by November, he would take a plea deal, having the vandalism charges dismissed, but he would be sentenced to 2 years in state prison for the burglary charges. Now, by late 2018, Bandit would be released from prison and back on the block. But this would only be temporary because by January 27, 2019, he would be arrested yet again, this time on trespassing and giving a false identification to a police officer. Now, on this charge, he would plead no contest, and with this only being a misdemeanor, he will receive probation, but he would spend a few months in county. Now, over the next several years, Bandit would stay out the way, simply taking care of his kids and spending time with his family. And at some point, he would move to Las Vegas, completely away from the hood, for a short while. But in 2021, he would lose some of his closest homies from the Turf, Cooper Bang, and Lee Dog in a car crash. Now, the loss of his two homies would be a big loss to the Pueblos as an entire hood. Now, by the summer of 2023, Lil Bandit would find himself getting into trouble with the law, and he would sit down for at least a year. But by 2024, he would eventually get out and be back on the streets. But as time continued to go on, Bandit still managed to stay out the way and keep his interaction with the law at a bare minimum. But the hood is always gonna be the hood, especially with beef with other sets. Now, previously, the Pueblos and the Avalon's beef had cooled down, but by 2025, the beef would start heating back up again, and this would lead to disses from both sides, the Avalons and the Pueblos, especially on social media. And the Pueblos would also release a diss song taking shots at multiple hoods, which would include the Avalons.
Crime killer, totes killing, niggas know it get tricky. Got police all on my ass, but still gonna terrorize the city.
Now, Lil Bandit was never known for being the guy to go looking for trouble, but if you stay out in the streets and in the hood long enough, death will eventually come knocking. And on May 17th, 2026, at around 1:30 a.m., Bandit will be walking across the street from a family home to get something to eat at a taco stand on Holmes and Slauson. Now, this industrial area is not known by any stretch as a hotspot for shootings whatsoever. And this is why Bandit felt safe walking in this section. Now, while getting ready to order his food, a vehicle will pull up, and moments later, Bandit will walk towards that car. Now, it's unknown if he knew the people in the car, but seconds later, Bandit would exchange words with a man in the vehicle, and suddenly, the man in the car will pull out a gun and open fire. The shooter will let off 5 to 7 shots, and Bandit would be hit multiple times as he would collapse on the sidewalk. Now, witnesses who were nearby would call 911 immediately, along with the EMTs who would arrive shortly. Now, the EMTs would try to save Bandit's life, but sadly, 30-year-old Deshaun Coleman, aka Lil Bandit, would die from his injuries at the scene.
He told me he heard about 7 to 8 gunshots. Let's go ahead and get you to some video from earlier. In this clip, you can see several bullet holes in a fence near the stand. The LAPD says the shooting was reported just before 2 in the morning near the intersection of Holmes and Slauson Avenues. A man walked toward a car and there was some sort of an argument. Police say the man was then shot and the shooter took off in a car.
We hear some people yelling, like yelling bad words. Yeah, I hear the gunshots. I hear like 7 gunshots, and that scares me. I didn't move. I was frozen, like no zero nerves. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if to run or to stay.
Police are still looking for the shooter and they do not yet have a description of the suspect's car. Anyone with more information on this is asked to call the LAPD.
I'd like to say RIP to Lil Bandit, and I want to thank everybody out there for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
He was a good person, a loving person. He took care of everybody.